I'd like to welcome everybody down to our league convention. It's always a highlight of the year. I'm speaking for myself, but I'm hoping it is for all of you. I don't think we'll go and do introductions, just read your name tags, look online, and I encourage you to interact with each other when we have breaks and things like that, because that's the fun of this convention, is just getting to see our friends. We're going to go ahead and start with our two, that we always do, some action items. One is to review and approve the minutes of March 18th, 2024. Oh, you're just, okay, we have a motion, a second. Okay, perfect.
Sorry, can you say your name?
Those, yeah.
Moved. It's Mayor Don Ramsey.
Yeah, I know. And I said, I think I got a promotion.
Did you get a vote?
Who is the second? Sorry.
Mayor Tran. For Dugan. Early. Big time. All right, all in favor to approve the minutes, say aye.
Aye. Mayor Kathusi, can I say something real quick?
Yeah.
This is Mayor Michelle Randall. The commute was too far for me to go to the Dixie Center. Actually, I've had a family medical thing, and I've got 3 toddlers at my house right now. So that is why I'm not joining you in person, but I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. And I did my best to get you good weather.
Thank you. And Mayor Randall, we could have come to your house and done it.
You could have, if you wanted to listen to the 6-year-old, the 3-year-old, and the 1-year-old.
No, we just appreciate, we love your city. We're grateful we are all
We listen to
here.
people like that every day.
This is very true. No,
Okay.
but I would be there in person if this hadn't just occurred today. So, but welcome you all. I just want welcome to St. George, and I hope we have a great conference and the weather will be awesome.
We're really excited to be here. Thanks, Mayor Randall. All right, so the motion carried, the minutes were approved, and just a reminder of our ULCT conflict of interest forms. If anybody has an issue, make sure you handle that. We're now going to move to item number 3, which is the ULCT board and commission reports and appointments, and Liam is going to take this one.
I don't know where I'm going.
I know. Hi, Liam.
I guess so. It was weird. I was playing by myself. That's not usually how it goes. Okay, so quick update. We don't have anybody to bring forward for these things, but I just want to give a quick update. So the first one, the Utah Communications Authority, that was the one that Gary Walcott was serving on with Sean Guzman. We are still looking for somebody there. If anyone's interested, we've had a couple people reach out about that one, but we haven't had any final decisions or for sure like commitments or anything like that. So still working on that one. I'll jump to the Water Operating Certification Commission. This is a new one that we weren't actually really aware of, but the Division of Drinking Water reached out to us about this. And we have one member that would represent municipal water supply management and be nominated by the ULCT board. They're 3-year terms. And the board serves as an advisory committee on proposed rules, modifications, changes, and interpretation of the rules by which operators must abide. So this is one, if you're interested or if you know anyone that's interested, we'll be putting it in Friday Facts and some other places to promote that and highlight that one.
Does it have to be an elected official?
Nope.
Okay.
Just an individual, from our membership. So, and then the MIHP appeal board, Cam, do you want to talk more about the appeal board? We had Rob Wall on it, who was leaving. That's why the thing is.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor, and everybody. Welcome to St. George. Thanks for making the time to join us for the next couple of days. And thank you for taking an afternoon. It's absolutely perfect weather outside to be here inside with us for the strategic board meeting that we have each year. So thank you very much for that. The MIHP appeal board that Liam is referencing is something creating statute a year ago when a city disagrees with the DWS assessment of whether or not a city is in compliance with the moderate income housing plans. They can essentially appeal the DWS ruling to a 3-party appeal board, and the league appoints one of those three members of the appeals board. Last year, we appointed Rob Wall, who was a recently retired city attorney with decades of city experience, most recently being in West Jordan. Rob Wall has been a part of the League family for going on 40 years, so I'd hate for me to say that number out loud. Rob and his wife are leaving on a church mission. They're headed to Frankfurt, Germany, next month on a legal mission, actually doing legal work for the whole European area. So they will be, so he will not be able to serve on the MIHB appeals board anymore, but for good reason. So the good news is last year, the appeals board was never used. It was unnecessary because all cities were in compliance. So it's a small time commitment, but if something came to that appeals board, it's important that we have somebody who understands local government and someone who understands land use and understands how those statutes work. So with that background, we're looking for someone to replace Rob, and we hope to have that done in the next few weeks.
You wanted to have a legal background?
Not necessarily a legal background, but somebody who understands someone who understands the housing space. Rob was perfect because he was recently retired and wanted to stay in the game a little bit. Doesn't have to be an attorney.
Can I interject a little bit? You talked about we need to fill the seat that Gary Whatcott held. So this is my first time coming to this conference ever without Gary Whatcott. And it makes me sad. But if you, I don't know if any of you ever noticed that he always carried a leather bag that looked just like this, but it was very well patinaed. It was love, whatever, that's what he loved. The day I graduated from BYU a year ago, he was there at the luncheon that we had afterward. And he could not wait. He could not wait. I walked in the room and he was like, I know you got to get started and be official, but I just want you to open this. And he was excited. And he gave me this bag, my kids. And I carried it. I have it. So anyway.
You better Ramsey can fill that role.
Nope, that's it for me. I will actually just say really fast, this isn't on this one, but in the vein of filling Gary's role, we'll be filling the program director position that he was working on the local administrative advisor program for me as well. So we'll be posting for that soon. There's no replacing Gary, but we'll do our best to fill that role.
Okay,
Thanks.
so when do you need those by? Like, do you want to give us a deadline so that we,
You know, a deadline probably would be a good idea. I know for the communications authority, that's one that we really want to fill as soon as we can. So the next time that we would be back here, the name to.
the small number of us got to be able to come up with a name for you.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, William. Okay, let's move on then to item number 4, which is the engagement update by our Deputy Director, Molly Wheeler.
Excellent. So I'm actually going to pass things off to Katie, our major queen. There.
You can close the microphone.
Am I trying not to talk louder? So we're really excited for this. Our crowd this year is actually larger than last year. We have about 580 folks registered for this conference, and that's just attendees. It's also the largest exhibit hall with like 88 different exhibitors here. So it's going to be an awesome conference. We have a bit of an Olympic theme going on this year with Noelle Picus Pays giving a keynote tomorrow. She's really looking forward to it, along with some other special videos and all that we'll be doing during tomorrow's opening session. And then, oh, and also we have a pretty large crowd of first-time attendees. It says 133 on the agenda. I haven't checked that number today, but I'm guessing it probably has gone up because our registration has gone up over the last week or so. Is there anything?
I just want to applaud Katie and Angela Adams there by the door, and Molly and the rest of the home team for tremendous amount of work leading into this conference. They are planning this conference along with Nick and Meg and Nick also am I missing from Cassidy from our engagement team. They're building this event while the legislative team is up at the Capitol, and we basically just get to show up. And the fact that they really shattered the records of attendance is awesome. And please keep an eye out for those first-time attendees. We'll be doing a special breakfast for them tomorrow. Hopefully a lot of them will pick up the first-time attendee badges, but we want to make sure they feel welcome and feel like they're part of the overall team league. And so thank you, Katie and Angela and everybody else for your tremendous work for. Thank you.
Beyond mid-year, rolling out a new program for our regional event. And so part of that ties with the next item on the agenda. Annual is going to start a day and a half, so it'll be September 4th and then 5th half day, right? No, sorry,
2 full days,
2 full days, sorry.
from 2.5 to 2.
That would be 2 days. But part of why that is being shortened is that we're essentially showing everyone. So starting in May, we have a busy week. We'll be at Serta, R6, and 5 counties, possibly up in that. And then later in the summer, we'll be up in Bragg in June and in the Basin in June as well. And still working on some details of WFRC. And so we're really excited to get out into the communities, be able to engage with some members, and ideally some members who aren't really coming to our conferences, for those cities, small cities and towns with budget constraint to come here. And so we're excited to go to that. So we'll keep you posted on how all of that unfolds. For Utah policy.
Well, can we just, there you go. Can you just give your 2 cents on the regional summits that's 6 county now R6 has hosted the last couple of years, because that event is what spurred the conversation to try to do what they're doing with R6 and the rest of the state.
The meetings have been terrific. Everyone loved them. They had little breakout sessions that were small enough that people could really engage with the instructors and talk about issues that were causing challenges for them and hammer out some approaches. And so all the feedback I got was that it was very much appreciated to have those opportunities, not only to associate with other city council and mayors, but and managers, but to also really dive into some of the nitty gritty. And the league staff arranged to support some of those sessions with technical and legal expertise, and just very, very valuable.
And along those lines, one thing I'm excited about is we work really hard to make sure that there's great programming at our mid-year and annual events. And I'm excited as we are able to get granular into this area, looking at what is like the specific training that R6 as a region needs and 5 county as a region. So I think we're going to be able to really make some nice tailor-made workshops and programming for these specific areas. Next on the agenda, we got the Utah policy and op-ed update. Yeah, you can ask them too. Yeah.
So, Holly, on that.
I need to work with Holly on that. During the session, she had a health scare, which was kind of scary. And then Deseret News lost a lot of their political people. So I just need to circle back with her and kind of talk about a plan for summer on how we're going to work on that partnership and to show what cities are doing.
So then moving on with an update for you all on dignity index and disagree better. So in our last board meeting, we had a good discussion about what you as board members needed kind of in your role as board members, but also in your communities. And we got some helpful feedback looking at both conflict resolution as well as social media. So some programming that we were able to incorporate into mid-year. We have 3 workshops that are going to look at those issues. We have one looking at the legal requirements, best practices for social media use. We have Todd as well as some of our board members, including Councilmember Witch and Mayor Walker, looking at just general conflict resolution as they kind of interacted with it through their careers. And then we also have Todd Sheeran from Harriman coming to talk about the legal requirements, best practices for public comment periods. So that's what we're looking at in our workshops. In the Friday general session, Mary Jessup, who's chair I'm taking, and I are going to sit down for a little bit to talk about how Hillsdale has incorporated dignity. She shared some of that story with us last month. So I look to that for our general programming. And then outside of mid-year, I've been with Professor Donia Mori out of, Donia Mori out of the U. She runs their environmental dispute resolution program. And there's a lot of conflict resolution training, kind of outside of the environmental realm, but just general public policy, looking at what is some curriculum and some training that could be tailor-made for the league that would be impactful and beneficial for us as an organization and for our members. So some updates with that. She is actually going to be here tomorrow. So she's going to be attending the conference, attending some of these workshops and interacting with some of our members to get a feel for what our dynamic is, what our members need as part of a beginning kind of needs assessment. Another thing that she is looking at is attending, this is something we discussed, she would like to attend our May 20th board meeting and do a 90-minute kind of conflict, why do we need to talk about it, crash course. An important caveat for that is that she doesn't do hybrid meetings for these type of trainings. She would want everyone in person. And so that's a question of, you know, and a lot of this kind of, as I present this, we've talked about this being a priority for the board. Is this something we want to move with, understanding some policy? So she would like to come to a 90-minute in-person only training for the board and for Brent as well. With that, again, some of this needs assessment of what do you need, what are you seeing as she's looking to build out this program. Then through the rest of summer, she's proposed that she and her team will continue to chat with some of our members, send out a survey, and build out what a training resource curriculum can look like to then be annual with a one-year kind of pilot program, as well as at annual doing some intense kind of training, like a route of some workshop blocks for members there. So that's what we're kind of looking at of this full runway. In chatting with her about what it would cost to do that, she told us for all of this that we have about including the first year of programming and operation, about $50,000. And so as Nick is building up the budget and you as a board are thinking about our organizational priorities, we wanted to pose that question to you of kind of understanding that runway and that dollar figure. Is this something that we want to continue to pursue with her? And is this something that we want to prioritize having an in-person only May board meeting to kind of kick this off with her as well?
Yes.
Sure.
So I've sat on one of their national boards evaluating political speech all around the nation, and it's been a really interesting experience for me to see how, as you move from our local government up, the rhetoric gets worse. The hard part for us is all of our constituents on the ground level are listening to that, and that's where it comes back in. And I've been meeting with a few other mayors and councils, and they'll say, I just don't know what we're supposed to do. And it's not a transactional thing. It's not, I talk nice to you, you talk nice back. It's, I talk nice to you so many times that you get it. And then you start talking nice without having to be forced, right? And I think it does take leadership to get to that point in our community, is people realize they don't want to be what they're projecting right now. They don't really want to be. It conflicts with them morally, religiously, whatever their mama told them when they were babies. And now they find themselves that they can't get out. So I think it's really could be helpful in our communities start leading the way.
One of my questions is the one-year programming, how many meetings
Yeah, and that is what we don't know right now. What we discussed with her is trying to figure out, get something that's potentially like scalable. So one question we have is, do we start maybe with say something that's a little more on the affordable end and it's just a training for like the board and staff to start there and then look at how we base it out. A lot of that will come from the needs assessment. We're kind of in a limbo place right now where we don't, she doesn't know exactly what we need and we don't know what she can, you know, provide for that. And so she just kind of said, if you budget 50,000, if you build something in that and tailor it to what you want, and whether that's programming specifically for the board, for the general membership, to be targeted at intra-city dynamics or city to public dynamics, things like that, we can all explore. I appreciate it. That's part of why she didn't give us a hard number or anything like that. She just wanted to make sure that she created a program that would be beneficial to us and represented what we wanted it to be. And I think May might be a helpful or an opportunity to fill that out.
Molly, two questions. First, is there a size limit, the number of students you would have in a training session? And the second question would be, is there an opportunity for those who sat through this, that they could actually become a associate trained to take it to the next level?
Yeah, I think we can certainly look at that. Additionally, one thing on the radar is that the U actually does a certificate program in this fall. There's, I think as I was looking at it, it starts after annual and ends before session. So it's a great timing kind of overall. It's like September through early January. And that I think trains for like how to become a facilitator, things like that. I certainly think that's something to look at. She also has a pretty substantial team of her. So it would, I think, have more flexibility as to what that looks like.
I love that if we can integrate a train the trainer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that would be really cool.
So I was just going to say, I listened to the video I mentioned to you that is posted on the LEAP website. And she keeps saying on that it's impossible to crunch it down to like an hour or two because she has classes that go for multiple semesters. I would say if we're going to do something like this, and I certainly think that we have a necessity for dealing with these issues that disrupt everything that we're doing. But especially for those that are in outlying rural communities, I think that we like something like YouTube or something that could be accessed sessions to train folks that are far away.
Yes, and that was something she had mentioned, is that the U is looking at, it wouldn't be in depth or again, like focused out on the league, but looking at what are some kind of general evergreen topics that she is currently working on her coursework at the U that we could potentially kind of like buy a license or an access to then share with our members as well. So there's some of that content.
I think that's great.
Any other questions for Molly on the Dignity Index?
Do we want to do May 20th?
I just was asking Cam the time on that one.
Okay.
We are adding on the May 20th. Besides the board meeting, we are going to add on a closed session.
Okay.
So he said he thought maybe 90 minutes.
Yeah, 90 minutes. And I can also follow up with her to see if June 13th is an option. So I guess maybe if we open it up to say, is there an interest in the board kind of sometime this spring, summer, doing an in-person only board meeting, including this time with Professor Ramori?
I think it sounds great,
Yeah.
but
You said June 13th.
like a straw poll. How does everyone?
The June board meeting.
Okay.
Sorry.
June board meeting is on the 10th.
Okay, the 10th, pardon me.
I was like, oh, what? Okay.
yeah. And so I don't know the exact, so I also, she had proposed the 20th. So just finding a time with her in person. We'll kind of get it nebulous like that to give us some flexibility.
People, mayors won't be able to be
May
there.
20th sounds really good, but I may be somewhere else on that day. I'll be in ICSC.
On the 20th or the 10th?
The 20th.
Okay,
If there's ICSC.
I'll ask her about June then and see if that's an option.
Here's one thing.
Yes, please.
I don't believe we have LPC in May.
We do.
We do.
We do?
May 20th.
No, I was gonna say, because
it does make it a long day to have board meeting and LPC. So if we could somehow do it where we weren't, because if we're still gonna have a board meeting even condensed.
Yeah.
It might help if we can have a day where you don't have LPC.
No, it's a good point. We won't have LPC in June. Just to do May LPC to basically set the stage for the summer and organize the work groups. And so I Councilmember Bradshaw, I think that's a good point that because really one of the best parts about this meeting is this meeting is really designed as a deep dive. And timing wise, it didn't work out to have her come to this, and we didn't want to get in front of the board, say, oh, by the way, here's this professor, before we've even had the discussion. The first question that we need answered, and I've seen enough from the straw poll, is this a budget priority? So as we bring you a tentative budget next month, we plan accordingly for this. So Mayor, it feels like from the head nods and the straw poll that yes, people want to prioritize. And you know, there's a number's been floated around, but that is not a fixed number. You want us to prioritize it budgetarily. So that's the first box. Second box would be, in order to do the needs assessment, she's requested an in-person meeting. So we need to make sure we pick a date that could get a critical mass of people for an in-person meeting, and frankly, pick a location for that in-person meeting. We do try to do one board meeting at the City Hall of the President. We haven't been to Provo
would
yet.
love to host it.
So we have May, June, and August for Provo, but May board meeting currently is scheduled at the same time that a lot of local elected officials are going to be out of town. And so, anyway, we'll work through those logistics. But if the group consensus is yes, make it a budget priority, and yes, people are willing to commit the time for another in-person session in the late spring, then we can work through those details with her.
Yes.
Yes.
The in-person piece is hard
Yeah, that's right.
down in Blanding and rural stuff.
Over there.
Yeah, come to Blanding.
We'd also like to host is what I've just heard.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Well, Mayor, that's why I bring it up, because like we've tried to make sure all the meetings are hybrid, right? But St. George and Salt and the two conferences, when we ask people, like, try to be here in person. So this would be a sacrifice for people who are not centrally located. Molly, is that gonna be enough direction to?
Yeah,
with-
yeah, unless they-
Be here all day tomorrow to.
comment or anything else for consideration, we'll find a time to schedule with Professor Mori and tentatively look at placing that in the budget and exploring what curriculum at different scales could kind of correspond with that. Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody, for that direction, and Molly, thank you for your great work setting that up. Mary, you good if I jump into the advocacy update here?
Yeah, that'd be great.
Perfect. Justin and I are going to tag team this because we both have different information on different items. The objective here is really just a quick update, not necessarily discussion. We're going to hold for a future meeting the discussion question that's there, because we want to get to the discussion questions in section 6. So Justin, do you want to give an update on the possibility of a special session and just where things are at interim wise, and then I'll give an update on the UEOC.
Yeah, to start off with, they released, the legislature released the list of interim study items. And I just want to make a couple of comments on that. One, we put the list in kind of the board follow-up email so everybody can see that. But two, I emailed the list to myself, and my email says this message has no content.
We're used to that.
The interim study list, all the interim committees, they take things they want to look at. The other comment I'll make on it is, we've said this number a lot of times, 591 bills passed, 940 bill files open. But anyone know about how many bills went through interim last year? Of all those bills? Does Carson remember? A little over 100. Yeah, Kate's like, oh, I can't believe it was that. But about 900 bill files were open, 100 of them went through interim. So one, it's important that we watch interim. There are big things that come out of it. We also don't want to overstate that everything lives or dies by what happens during the interim. that being said, a couple of things that will happen before we meet next to the board. May 15th is the likely date for them to have their next interim meetings. So it's before we meet again, and that is the likely date if they're going to have a special session. Now, there are a few things that could show up in a special session. One, there's fixes that need to happen on the FIS already. It's very old and we're going to fix a couple little things that we found on that one. There's some other definitional things in some bills that we've identified. There's a potential, as we talked about last month, we put in a letter asking for veto on SB 161, the IPA bill. The governor still signed the bill, but there's potential there for a special session dealing with some of that as well. Okay, I don't know if there's anything more definitive than that, but there's potential.
There's negotiations that are taking place, and Joel Ferry has been tasked as the point person from the governor's office to lead those.
I had a very brief text exchange with Joel Ferry the other day. And I said, Joel, are you working on the IPA issue? And he said, yes. I'm like, great, let me know if you have time to chat. I'd like an update, and that's all we got. So he's not giving any specific updates. We are having a meeting Friday morning at 7:15, talking about that for those IPA cities. Just update there and anybody on that one. But those are the things. So interim could be coming. We don't have a specific interim schedule yet. There could be a special session, and those things will all happen before we see you again. With that, Cam, you want to talk about what you've heard with the UEOC and the CHA?
Before we get off.
Oh, yeah, fair.
Yeah, so, you know, the gravel bill that passed with Representative Snyder was supposed to have a committee formed, I think, by Department of Environmental Quality or is it? Yeah, so I haven't heard anything about that. I'm interested in trying to be proactive on that to try to get the right, to make sure that we actually have a committee of people that can interact and talk rather than individual consultations with certain people. And I think the league, I'd like to ask you guys to be a little more proactive in trying to get that going, organized, so that we have some time to talk about these issues. Because otherwise we're going to be out of time this summer. And I mean, it's already the middle of April, right? And there's a lot of work to be done on that.
Yeah, we will be putting a committee together on that as soon as we get through this video week. So, yep, that is coming up, absolutely.
Yeah.
Just on this note, Justin, just so that was other, I've also done some outreach to Director Ferry on that to see how he intends to set up. The legislation is very, it doesn't say that a work group shall be created. It says that the division will consult with these various entities, you know, first class cities, second class cities, gravel operators. And so I've also reached out to Phil on that, and I think that sits, how to handle that sits below some of his other things like a May special session, but I think we're proactively forming candidates to him.
Yeah.
At least from this side, that might be helpful because he's been kind of.
I agree with that. That's what I'm thinking about. Like, let's not just let it happen. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, no, and it's, I appreciate that. And it's important that they, Director Ferry got a lot of things dumped on him that weren't necessarily in his wheelhouse. So yeah, helping him prioritize that will be important. And as a reminder, there is not just Representative Snyder's bill that passed. There's the other bill that was out there that didn't go anywhere, but all the parties involved expect there to be discussions on that one as well. So there's plenty of work to do in that space, that's sure. So yeah, with that, you want to do UEOC?
Yep, this is hot off the presses. The UEOC, the Unified Economic Opportunity Commission, and the Commission on Housing and Affordability have started their planning meetings. What I'm about to share with you is actually, you know, this is an open public meeting. I was given permission to share with this group, but asked not to share with 580 attendees tomorrow. They can listen to the recording if they see fit, but the leadership, state leaders wanted the league board to be aware, but they were still working out the details. They didn't want to get out in front because they haven't even informed the UEOC members. of this plan of attack. Okay, so just know that, I had a call with them this morning to get this. The UEOC in years past, it has had a bunch of different work groups. In fact, some of you may remember, we put together a graphic with all sorts of circles and lines where we were trying to track all of the moving parts, and Mayor Ramsey represents the league on the UEOC and sat on a whole bunch of different subgroups. Right. Their leadership team reached out to us during the session asking for suggestions on how to make that process better. And one of the key things we told them was figure out what the actual priorities are and try to refine the process. And to their credit, they listened to us and others. And so they're going to have, they're planning to meet in May, likely May 20th or 21st. And they want the UEOC to really be more of the strategic group. They plan to have a couple of return and reports, one an overview of the last 3 years, but then another on water, transportation, and housing in particular, which is great because we've already put together a document that demonstrates all of the bills in the housing space in recent years that we will update and coordinate with Mayor Ramsey to present to the UEOC. So they want to have those specific reports, but then they want to have a focused discussion over the interim in 2 areas. Area number 1, the state's economic development plans around targeted industries. And that's everything from strategic planning to corporate recruitment, to education and alignment that the Governor's Office of Economic Opportunity will lead. So I'll be focused on the targeted industries that the state has identified as part of the state's overall economic development strategy. From a league perspective, we see a great opportunity there to talk about infrastructure, because often the impact on local infrastructure is one of the last pieces to that puzzle, when it really ought to be one of the first pieces to that puzzle. The second strategic objective is going to be around the Olympics. Now, what does Utah need to do over the next 10 years to prepare for the Olympics? And then what do we look like the day after the Olympics? Which coincidentally is very similar to the conversation we're going to have here as a board in a few minutes. I attended a meeting 2 weeks ago now, Senator McKell, Southern Utah County. Senator McKell is the co-chair of the state's Olympic Committee, the State Legislative Olympic Committee, along with Representative John Hawkins, who's also from Utah County. And in that meeting, that also included Senator Mitt Romney, Fraser Bullock, and former Governor Mike Lovett. They were discussing the lessons learned from 2002, and then what we need to do as a state to prepare for 2034. And Senator McKell, on 3 separate occasions in this meeting, said, we need to understand what success looks like, not just for the 3 weeks of the Olympics, but for everything around the Olympics. And we need to make sure that the cities are partners on everything we're doing with the state, and we need to make sure that the league's at the table. So 3 different times, in fact, I even texted Seth and Mayor Menden, Spanish Fork Mayor Mendenhall, to let them know that that was a priority of Mike, or excuse me, of Senator McKell, and that's terrific. That's a very good starting point. So the UEOC is going to be focusing on that. And that first meeting in May, they plan to, the term that was used to me this morning, is they want UEOC members to roll up their sleeves and start whiteboarding on some of these questions, which means the discussion we're going to have here in a few minutes is a board in this area. Next month, Mayor Ramsey is going to be taking that feedback and the discussion from this group to the UEOC as they prepare for the interim discussions. So I think it's great timing. We'd ask you to prepare for these questions anyway, because come next month, they'll be ready to rock and roll. The Commission on Housing Affordability will also be meeting and funneling their recommendations up to the UEOC. They have not finalized what their subgroups are going to be, but they're going to meet in early May. Steve Waldrop will be here all day on Friday for both a workshop and a panel discussion. So I invite you to take time to meet with him. He's very responsive. He's obviously come to the league board meetings several times, but if there's specific things from your cities or your regions you want to raise with him, do it. He's got a master document where he's keeping track of all the feedback and all the different ideas. He and I were together for about 2 hours last week starting to talk through that list. I know there's going to be housing objectives and ideas from the private sector. Already, I know that list and that Steve is keeping has over 30 items on it. And then we'll see what comes out of our outreach to membership this week in the housing and land use and growth spaces as well. Any questions on UEOC or Commission on Housing Affordability or interim?
So I sit on the Olympic Committee. And a lot of people don't realize we have an Olympic venue in Provo, our Peaks Ice Arena. We host all the women's hockey sports. And so last week they were in town. I'm sure it was all over the news. And I got to host them down in Provo, 15 of them from all over the world. It was fascinating. And then was asked to go to dinner with them. And hearing them speak about what we need to do to prepare for their vision, and this is why Utah's just knocking out the park. It's no surprise to any of you. But sustainability, the fact that we are keeping ours up and running, they were just loving that our Peaks Ice Arena, it isn't just sitting there waiting for the next Olympics, fingers crossed, right? Even while they were there was youth hockey going on one rink and open skate on the other. And so they really are hoping to eventually at some point get the Olympics so it's more cost effective and sustainable by doing like 4 cities on a rotation for the winter and 4 for the summer. It'll save billions of dollars. And again, it's all about sustainability. Another piece they talked about was I said, so as a mayor, what should I be doing right now? And it was fascinating because they didn't say, oh, get all your mayors and start doing X, Y, and Z. He just said, start to innovate, start to think and think big. And anyway, so just keep those in mind. They also spoke a lot about the future of the Olympics. So these, 12-year-olds, they're the hope of the Olympics up and coming. And what does that look like in our cities? How do we keep the sports going? So it was a fascinating few days. I was really lucky to be a part of. And I sit on the Olympic Committee. So.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mayor. And I think, I think we are going to have a fantastic Pioneer Day this year because
that's a big day.
Announcement will come on July 24th about the 2034 games.
Yeah, it'll be in Paris, France, live.
Yep, that's right. That's right. So while you're camping out for the Pioneer Day Parade, you can watch the live in Paris. But we have a tremendous opportunity before us. So that's the climate talk for the UEOC. In your packet, there was a handout where we linked to some headlines of some interesting articles. As we thought, rather than us writing a memo summarizing it all, we just share these articles with you. I'm not going to talk through them in detail. I just want to highlight 2 things. One, on the Olympic front, the discussion I was referencing, you can read more about those panels in that Olympic section because there's some good news coverage about those events. I talked to former Governor Mike Leavitt at that event, and he just released his memoirs, and he released them for free. They're available to the public, and he offered, and I accepted, to arrange for a conversation with him and the league, whether it's the board or membership or otherwise, just about lessons learned as we look forward to the Olympics. So we'll work on coordinating that.
For our September.
Yeah, it could be September. It could be. Yeah, we're still working out what those details would be. The other thing I wanted to emphasize is just those national stories on housing with references to Utah. The week after the session ended, there was a retreat with the National Governors Association where governors from across the country were swapping stories and sharing notes about what had happened in their recent legislative sessions on housing. And Governor Cox sang the praises of the collaborative efforts that we've had here. But not a day goes by without some sort of local or national headline on housing. So even though it would be great to say, let's take a breath and see if everything we've passed, see what works or what doesn't work, because there's this immense amount of political pressure locally and nationally, and because you have state leaders from different states sharing notes and looking for good and bad examples, we want to make sure we stay at the table and have these conversations, but really stay focused on our key priorities around affordability, ownership, infrastructure, and quality of life. So those articles are worth reading at your convenience. The last thing I'll note before we pivot off of this is last week I met with the state league directors from 8 western states. And we were also discussing what had happened, and I did a 2-hour presentation on the housing package from this past legislative session. There was a lot of interest, and really the question they kept asking was, how are you able to get along so well with your legislature and with your governor? Which I realized during the session, sometimes doesn't feel like that, but that was very much the message. I was really impressed with the historic cloud that you guys have. The other thing that was kind of neat, there was not from the Western directors, but I had the Iowa League director reach out to me and said that we had a city manager from Utah who recently relocated to Iowa. And that city manager approached the Iowa director, who's been there for 25 years, and said, you need to learn how Utah does engagement and advocacy, and you need to create a league army in Iowa. And the Iowa director didn't know what he was talking about, so he called me to figure it out. But it is neat as we talk, now that the session's over, it tends to take a deep breath just to look at what we're doing here and how it can be leaders regionally and across the country. So with that said, anything else advocacy wise, any questions before we jump to the strategic session? Justin, thank you for that, and we'll be in touch as we get more details about potential special session. So Mayor Kaufusi, can we jump to item 6?
Let's go.
All right. In your packet, you have a copy of the annual report. You also have one in front of you for those in the room. This will be distributed to all mid-year attendees. Even though the year's not over, we still have a couple more months to go. We take advantage of the in-person opportunities in mid-year to share the advocacy, engagement, and operations reports so that people can see what collectively we are all doing on behalf of cities and towns across the state. You'll see that we give a shout out to you as league board members to appreciate the good work and the principles that you've adopted and the vision that you have for local governments in the state. And then you'll see Mayor Kaufusi's message on the back page as league president. So thank you very much to Nancy Hansen for putting this together so that we can share it with the membership today. Councilor?
Thank you for making it so readable. It's not something that's easy for us to share, and people really, the visual and the layout, absolutely love. People can look at it, they can pick out what they want. They stay engaged because it keeps changing enough to not be busy, but informative. So thank you.
Well, those things go to Cassidy because she basically rebuilt it from scratch to try to make it more useful. Well done, Cassidy. And thank you to West Jordan for training Cassidy. Is that what, Mayor Burton, is that what you were? So anyway, thank you for your leadership, and when you get a chance, take a look at the annual report. Nick, can you go down to the tactics feedback? Perfect. So last year, when we met here as a board, just pulled up on my computer so I can see these here.
Made it bigger.
I can still see these here. We have tried really hard over the last few years to use mid-year week to gather as much information from members. And that includes this board meeting, includes caucuses, UCMA earlier today, and just all the hallway conversations. And it's really a focus of us as staff to gather as much input as possible. So then last year, in May last year, we brought to you the board objectives and the takeaways from our spring outreach, not just mid-year week, but throughout the spring. What we are checking in on, this is not, we don't think this needs to be a big discussion, but just checking in on is if there's anything that you think we're missing from the objectives or the takeaways that we brought to you last year and that you adopted in that May. The objectives, Nick, if you can slide down the board breakout takeaways. This is what you told us last year. We've offered and read there just a few minor tweaks, but we're trying to use these as our guiding document for us as staff And then in those three different categories, I'll come back to the part two in a second, but for the board breakout takeaways, is there? Oh, sorry, let's go down to objectives. Sorry, Nick, I was on the wrong page. So part three here at the bottom. So these are the objectives that you adopted last year. We basically just deleted term-based to make it ongoing since we're now into fiscal year 2024, but it's basically the same objectives you had last year. This is what you adopted last spring. Is there anything that we're missing here that you would like us to consider adding to bring back to you next month as we work through? Because this is really goes in partnership with the tentative budget we'll bring you next. Is there anything that we're missing?
The only thing I would say on the homeownership, and maybe sure.
Sorry, jump down. So we're in the objectives. Sorry, I
Right.
misspoke.
Okay, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, yeah, I organized it backwards in the document. We needed to get the packet out, so I just left it as is. So that was my bad. But objectives, is there anything we're missing in the objectives piece? Okay, so then we'll bring this to you for adoption with the tentative budget and the final budget later this spring. So now, Councilmember, coming back to you, Nick, can we go back up to that? Takeaways, and this is simply, are we missing anything from the feedback you gave us last year? Because this was really the summary of the small group discussions we had last year. Councilmember?
Yeah, so I guess I'm going back to the part two about the, maybe this takeaways, but on the affordable housing side of the house, I always like to talk more about affordable living instead of housing, because I think we missed that over on that a number of times. We have these, we always talk about housing now and homeownership, but homeownership doesn't really help you out if you're 50 miles away from anything that can help you. So more the focus on the living versus the homeownership. Now, I'm not saying wrap that in there, but that's where we go.
That's good feedback, because again, we're not asking you necessarily to re-adopt these today, but that's helpful. We can kind of wordsmith where that would make sense to work into our. Anything else we feel like is missing from these takeaways from last spring? Okay, then Nick, will you slide down to part
We
two?
as a group are too nice.
You know, I was just pointing that one out. That we as a group are too.
The dignity and
Well, it was
cannot be too nice.
Well, what was interesting is that term was basically used in all three of our small group discussions last year. So it wasn't just one person said it, it came up everywhere, which is why we felt like it was important to have this part of the discussion and figure out, okay, what does that actually mean? But I do think we have a good story to tell that just in the past year, we've really leaned into those key principles, but even one of the tactics is have more difficult discussions at LPC. You guys told us that loud and clear last year in the small group discussions. So the way we tried to address that this year is we leaned into Slido and tried to
that was great.
Bring that way, and that was really helpful for us. So that was, I think, a good story to tell what you told us. And then even in the engagement section, last year we were talking about transfer stability and meeting etiquette, etc. Well, now it's going to be more focused because how we've evolved over the last few months. So, okay, the last just check-in piece here is this part two. This is really what we view as the starting point for the outreach this year, because last year through caucuses and through the other meetings, we heard from the members that they wanted the focus on homeownership and affordability and respecting the role of local government and these other pieces. And we feel like we were able to deliver legislatively everything that's highlighted in green. We feel like we were successful in delivering on those items. The ones in yellow, we brought up in different venues, and those conversations are still ongoing, even though they may not have resulted in legislation per se. And then when you get down to the slide, can you go all the way down? You see transportation, same thing. We feel like we made some really good progress based on what we heard from the membership. And then even at the Slido results that we shared or that we collected during the general session last year, let locals lead, give local governments time to implement, partner, don't preempt. Those are the themes that came out from people's comments. And again, I feel like we have a good story to tell about how the last year unfolded legislatively. So the reason we want to bring this up as a committee of the whole is what you adopted last spring, we are constantly referring to as a staff and checking in on. And we wanted to give you a chance to say, I think we need to add this piece, or we ought to modify this piece. And then we'll bring an updated document to you based on what we hear from members through the spring. We'll bring an updated document to you to ratify as part of the budget process later this spring. So is there anything we're missing or anything that comes to mind that you want us to work into the objectives and the tactics? Okay. Well, Mary, that's a good sign. That means, yeah, that means that we're going the right direction here. But it also means that when we break up into small groups here, we don't want to be redundant with what we talked about last year. So this is the refresher of where we focused our small group discussion last year, because where we want to focus our small group discussion this year around these three big questions that are in the agenda. Question number one, what are the biggest challenges that your city and region will face between now and 2034? And with that question, we want you to think both about North Logan specifically, but Cache Valley general, or Kaysville specifically, and Davis County general. Question two, what keeps you up at night as a mayor, council member, or city manager? And this question is not necessarily just about like what bill do we need to pass. We want to make sure we as staff have a good understanding of the specific issues that you're facing in your communities, because that could help us from a training perspective or membership engagement perspective, or find out that Vineyard's dealing with this issue, but Riverton's actually dealing with it too, and we can help connect those dots. So that'll be question two in the small group. And then question three is really more to guide us as staff as we're listening to you, is what is our role to help you and your city colleagues as you address these challenges. So what we are going to do here is we're going to split up into small groups for Mayor Kaufusi. Let's say we're actually, pretty good schedule, timing wise. Yeah. So let's say maybe 25 minutes, 25, 30 minutes, or until the conversation runs out. We'll split into three groups, and then we'll come back committee of the whole and just get the high level summary of what we've heard. And then we as staff will dig deeper. We'll be taking notes in all of the meetings, both for purposes of minutes and to be able to report back to you next month what we've heard collectively. We've prearranged the groups to try to have a split of urban and rural and big city and smaller communities so that there's nice cross-pollination there. We'll have Team Nick, Team Molly, and Team Justin, and then other league staff will help facilitate the conversations. So that'll be the small group discussion here in a moment. You'll notice that the questions for caucuses are slightly different, and that's because the caucuses are a much larger group. And we thought we'd try to keep a little more general for the caucuses. We are asking you, though, as board members, to help facilitate those caucus discussions tomorrow. So we have 6 caucuses. We used to have 5, but based on advice from several of you, including Councilmember Egbert, we've subdivided the rapid growth caucus into the emerging rapid growth, and then those who are full speed ahead already in the rapid growth because challenges are so different. And then we have board members in each of those 6 caucuses. And so league staff is going to be asking different board members to help facilitate that discussion tomorrow as we ask these questions of the caucuses. The other thing is we're actually going to start the caucus discussion tomorrow with Slido, actually with Qualtrics. So that way everybody in the room can speak their piece electronically. And then as the feedback comes in, the facilitators can say, okay, these ideas are popping up, let's flesh that out a little bit more. So that'll be the plan tomorrow, but we want to take advantage of having so many people in person today to break into the small groups for these questions. Before we make the assignments of where to go, are there any questions about what we want to accomplish here in the next half an hour?
But this group, we can sleep at night.
Maybe, yeah, maybe I'll just keep you even more awake as you hear about all the challenges that are out there. For those of you online, what we're going to request is that you answer these questions in the chat room. Because of the way the room is wired, there's no way for us to basically have a small, if we had to ask these questions of you online and you spoke up, everybody would hear you. There's no way with the AV to not do that. So our request, Councilmember Phillips and Naomi Randall said she had to leave to go pick up.
That's Carson, so it's just council member.
Oh, for Councilmember Phillips. So our request is put your answers to these questions just in the chat room for questions 1, 2, and 3, and then in about a half an hour, we'll come back as a group to give the quick summaries, and then we'll do a deeper dive later. Okay. So if there are no questions, then we will break up into groups.
I know, what time do we want to be done by? It was 6:25.
Yeah, so it's well, basically start the groups 3:15. Let's plan to come back at 3:45, but if you're done in your groups before then, I'm gonna be I'll be roaming, and actually Ramsey's gonna roam because she wants to hear, because of her UEOC role, she wants to hear the different groups as you're talking about the Olympic questions. She's gonna roam as well. So let's shoot to come back to me the whole 3:45-ish, do the high level summaries, and yeah, we should still be right on schedule to get on it. If we end up needing more time, we can take more time. Okay, so with that being said, Team Justin will be at this whiteboard right over here, and staff will be taking notes on the whiteboard and on computers. That'll be, we've also split the league officers up. So this is Mayor Kafusi, you'll be there, Mayor Silvestrini, Mayor Monson, Councilmember Egbert, Mayor Tran, and Councilmember Baird. So that'll be Team Justin. Then let's go Team Molly will be Mayor Walker, Seth Perrins. I almost called you Manager Perrins, but that felt a little formal.
Mr.
Mayor Wright, Councilmember Malkovich, Councilmember Dugan, Councilmember McKay, and Mayor Peterson. And then Team Nick over there, Councilmember Bradshaw, Mayor Burton, Mayor Jessup, Mayor Shepherd, Councilmember Winch, and I'll do our Clerk Spencer, Clerk Spencer. Yeah, great, perfect. So we'll come back 3:45.
Points on the board.
Hey, Justin, can you keep it down over there?
No.
Shakespeare. Keep it down.
Waiting us, we have everyone is here.
Okay, let's go.
So what's gonna start? Big challenges that face the next 10 years. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah. Well. Yeah. Chuck from. Yeah. Yes, so. Don't.
Yeah.
Yes. It is. Safe.
Oh, that's good. So is this another kicker?
Something. So does that, this is going to start all sorts of conversations about. For us and how. Shift to. There. Sir, growth obviously. Doesn't have to be the real. Like we talked about stability and our index, that sort of thing. And, right, so those types. So. See that.
They're doing what they can.
Are you this?
If she makes their election.
So. On this. Rather than. Some of this, or that. The answer is.
Yeah.
So I, started board. Part of that. Particularly. And. So. Do you see that? So I have, hey, this is our way. 10 years ago. I started this, like, say, what do you think about community health? We did survey. What do you think about community health in this state? And it was. You know, folks on their own. But. Maybe this is. So, but focusing. Just. Gonna get us. We're good to go. It's just all.
Water running. Road paved. I.
But actually. So. It's essentially, that could be a next. You're on the third, right? You may be able to July for enough time as it takes to get. And Right, and so that. Together, we do a lot of conventions, so. We talking together about research at a meeting that. Of course, the big those issues are. Not as a complaint session. But this is what it's causing me for an idea session. These types of questions, in caucuses, yeah, and way from sometimes as the best of us and the grievances. That we get the ideas, the solutions.
That's why ours is everything.
Good line. I just we can talk about. That's the number that we. Really like. Yeah.
Multi-sector. That, of fire missions. Coalition dash. Oh, brands. Oh, partner. They have a very. Here. Yeah. Each other. But there's Fair. No, it's not 11, not necessarily 40, but it's something. That's why. Specific things there. So it's. And yeah. Without even talking. Because. And yet. All of our structures.
Bring.
Also. Yeah. Old ten minutes over, that's especially perfect for a week. Do we want to ring the bell here in a minute? 10 minutes over. Yeah, we were just making the call. Well, we could go on forever.
Sure. So next.
We had a couple.
So I'm gonna back with them. Yes, if you always, you're breaking.
Hey. Yes. Okay. Yes. It's like. Yeah. 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 Oh, people are killing it. Thanks for sharing my word and like those that. Any questions? It's gonna be a little different. Yeah. Yeah. Great, thank you all. Thank you. That was awesome.
No, I don't think so.
Oh, I thought of that. It's a great
No, and there's
articulation.
probably 100 other things.
Oh, yeah.
Times that they allow.
Yeah, you're gonna ring the bell here. We'll keep going, but we can try and get rid of it. We can just keep going and going.
You put it there.
But we didn't.
I didn't do it.
Usually I'll go to chill. But the EPA. It's gonna be. I'll just. Yep. And I'm trying about water. You can erase this whole thing and scope in there.
The lower taxes. You know what? Not right. So, and they're talking about one city. We're talking about one. Oh. Yes. In reality, we probably should be racist.
Well, come back.
And that's the key. It's the, okay, we've dropped as low as you want. We'll get it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I know, having your cake and eating into time honored human tradition. Oh, yeah.
So.
And they're not even 20 or 30 anymore, they're 50%.
Yeah, the cost and the bandwidth.
Yeah.
I just wonder if there's some sort of way of pooling resources or something. For the young age to get. And small areas.
Right now. We didn't. We didn't have it.
I know.
Hey. Let's bring it back to the committee of the whole, please.
Right there.
I'm not asking.
It's good. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Well, thank you, everyone, for the robust discussion. Nick, are we back online?
We've been online and recording the whole time.
Right.
It's football, but.
Well, thank you everyone for engaging in that discussion. I was roving around, taking notes, and we had lead staff taking notes both on the boards and on computers for us to do a deep dive. Holly, Justin, any quick pieces you want to share with the group on behalf of your subgroup?
One thing, yeah, I'll go through a couple quick ones. The Olympics, obviously, we know, big things are going to come with that. And we already have, a very high growth rate. Growth is coming, but seeing an uptick like we did before, so like a new kicker in population growth that could come as a result of opening up to the world again. And if we're going to be in that, if they switch to the 4 venues and one of them presumably being us, that could be an issue there. Also, the overall conversation around tax distribution, allocation, changing formulas, that sort of thing. Cam brought up that happened historically as we led into the 2002 Olympics. Stuff keeping folks up at night. Social media was a big one. A couple different facets of that being needing to know the rules as an official, and also the misinformation that goes about some of the citizen pages / rumor mills that kind of pop up and how to deal with those. Youth disconnection from communities, what we can do as cities and towns to kind of make people feel like they belong was a big one. Cyber attacks, that doesn't keep anyone awake, right?
Does now.
Yeah, when you mention it. And then stuff that ULCT can do. Stuff that we're trying to implement in the caucuses, things being more of an idea and a solution-oriented discussion rather than a complaint session. And then another thing I think we're doing, but we continue to work on and emphasize is evergreen training content on our site. I know we're updating our website and we'll have this lead library, but a place where people can go to reference to be trained, and also making sure members are aware of that content and promoting that, making sure they can share it, that sort of thing. Making it digestible, short. We know these things about videos. Cassidy's teaching us to stop filming horizontally when we're putting something on social media, and film vertically now, apparently. So that hits on a few of the things, and but I got time open up to anyone in our group to add on.
Perfect. Thank you, Nick. Let's go. Justin, you want to quick high-level takeaways, organize, we'll do a deeper dive in the next few weeks to report back to you.
We talked about a lot of topics that I think I respect. One of the high-level takeaways I think that came up in all the sections is how do you get public buy-in on these different topics? I mean, how do you get them to accept policy change, something you're doing, even cleaning up or fixing them? So how do we engage with the public in a way that gets them to understand why we're doing what we're doing and how to move those things forward? And it's not going to get easier as we grow and as we tackle these issues. Not going to get easier. So how do we get buy-in, and then talk about what like we can do? How do we provide tools, training, and our convening power to get our members to have buy-in, to keep passing that down the road? So I think Nick covered a lot of things we talked about, but that's one of the bigger I think overarching highlights.
Awesome. Thank you, Justin. Molly?
Yeah, we covered those as well. As far as the Olympics and additional things we discussed, we're really looking at the need for maintaining infrastructure and infrastructure with water, roads, transit, electricity, just recognizing that there's a lot of aging infrastructure in this state that needs to be supported. Also looking, as Nick was saying, really just like the pressure of looking at how does this kind of catalyze everything we're already struggling to address to an even more severe degree. As far as what keeps folks up at night, same as others mentioned, money versus the need and the resources, degradation of public trust and support for public institutions, seeing that trickle from the federal government into local government, and kind of feeling this pressure from both ways of kind of an erosion of national discourse and then that coming up from the residents as well, and kind of both creating this pressure within local government. The need for folks in public service, whether it's paramedics, police officers, just general public works, that there aren't a lot of folks interested in that career line, making people panic. As far as ULCT, maintaining local control, making sure we're giving our folks tools to communicate with residents about different policies, about where our hands are tied as locals versus where we're being really proactive. Looking at how we can better engage with legislators, and kind of just messaging campaigns of what is the value of a local government and what is that providing you as a resident.
Perfect. Thank you, Molly, and thank you to everyone for your engagement in this exercise. I bounced around taking notes, and these were open-ended questions, and we had a lot of similar discussion, but with a local flair, because the underlying principles were the same in Manti and in Salt Lake, but the specific ways to approach them were a little bit different. And it's really helpful for us as staff to gather that feedback, and we'll do a deep dive on everything we've heard here and bring it back to you as we figure out the next steps for us. And also, thank you over the last couple of years as you've passed votes here to do the big dues increase a couple of years ago, because that allowed us to expand our staff to a point where we do have the capacity to not just do advocacy, but to take some of these ideas around using the convening power for engagement and figure out how to do that. I mean, the regional meetings we've talked about in partnership with the AOGs would not have been able to happen with our staffing what it was 3 years ago. It can happen now. And so thank you for investing in us so that we can figure out the best way to serve the members going forward. One thing that I heard as I was going around listening was around how we try to use caucuses to listen to the members and try to glean from those caucus meetings what is keeping them up at night, but also what they need, their priorities, and what that could mean for potential legislation. And I referenced this before we broke up into small groups, but I just want to reemphasize it here. We joke with staff that sometimes those meetings can turn into Festivus with the airing of grievances. We have not brought any aluminum poles to any of the meetings yet, although I'm quite certain, I'm quite certain of strength. But we don't want to go down that path, because then America Pussy would bring her sons, and it would be, it'd be ideal. That's right. But what we heard from everybody was we want to make sure that when we're convening the membership, that we can pivot away from the venting, which is inevitable, and there's a time and place for that, and it's helpful for people to explain themselves, but being able to pivot that back to idea sharing and potential solutions. So you'll see in the caucus questions for tomorrow, we're starting with, what are the challenges you're facing? What do your state leaders knew about your city? But then that planned question 3 is, okay, let's talk about potential approaches. Let's try to start working down that solution side of things. And it's our request as league staff that you as board members help us steer that conversation. We are going to ask certain board members to co-facilitate with league staff, because we think that will help with the dynamic. And we'll ask the Festivus questions we'll ask them electronically so people can speak up that way, and then try to steer the in-person discussion to more of what we just experienced, just admittedly on a slightly larger scale. So with that being said, is there anything anybody else wants to bring up about mid-year, about caucuses? Is there anything that came to you that you want to just make sure gets on the board before we wrap up today?
We should change the name for establishment size. It sounds like middle-aged. I don't like it.
No, I think that's this. I'm going to start it.
No, that sounds appropriate.
We are open to suggestions on how to change it between now and tomorrow.
Cities like Bountiful, that's a good thing.
Powerful caucus, and let's just see the rest of you get to go to my caucus. The other night.
Invite them.
Any other thoughts or comments or anything else somebody wants to bring up to the committee of the whole here?
I have to hand it to you. I think it's brave to ask such broad, open-ended questions. Because we know, I'm just gonna open the opportunity for Pandora's box. It's all gonna come out. Also, all of these folks sit in city council meetings and listen to the public do the exact same thing, right? And just come in with all their, whatever it is they're gonna bring. Part of me wonders if that's why these caucus meetings go that way. They don't get to usually answer back to those things. They're going to go, but I appreciate your willingness to really open it. This isn't a steer, well, we don't want anyone to go here. It isn't that. Bring it all, like, bring your, it's best of us, and it can all come out and whatever, and then we'll try to work on it. I have to hand it to you for that. I appreciate that. It really gives everyone a chance to say whatever they want, for better or for worse. That's a great opportunity.
And adding on, I think we're already seeing the fruit of that because it's given us some good ideas and good things to not only talk about here, but also are already springboarded into positive directions. I think it's great, but I think it's pretty productive.
Yeah, thank you. Productive meaning it's a lot of extra work.
Yeah, yeah.
For this stuff, but it's, thank you for not holding back.
Well, thank you. Mayor Kafusi, we have a board dinner at 5:30 at Cliffside. Nick, is there anything else you need RSVP wise, or do you know who's coming?
I've got a good idea.
Right.
Most people responded, so, and we've got enough, so we're all set.
It is optional. We know sometimes cities will go do their own dinners on Wednesday. That's great. Your priorities should be your city. But we invite you to join us, and if you have families with you, bring your families. We'll be at, some staff will be there, some staff will be here checking people in, and then tomorrow morning we get underway. I know I have to be down here at 6:45, but you don't. The newly elected breakfast at 7:15. So again, we invite you, if you want to come mingle and rub shoulders with those newly elected mayors and council members. That'll be during the breakfast hour. It's an Ask Us Anything session for Mayor Ramsey. This is, to your point, it's great, but we have some of the best city minds in the state. Roger Chu, Todd Godfrey, Terry Nakamura, Meg Ryan will be there to answer whatever questions our newly electeds have for them. And then Todd will be doing powers and duties, and then we'll be underway at the opening general session at 9 tomorrow morning. We'll be in touch after we talk to Professor Amore on the conflict resolution piece about May and June. We will be presenting the tentative budget to you in May, and then the adoption of the final budget in June, and then the May, June, or August meeting we do intend to do in Provo, recognizing that we also are planning LPC in May and August on those days too. And so we'll be working through those logistics with Mayor Kafusi's team over this week. Thank you for taking the time away from friends and family and loved ones and work. And thanks for all the travel, Mayor Monson and Mayor Peterson, to get the prizes for the longest drives. So thank you for taking the time to join us for the next couple of days. It's an honor to serve you, Mayor.
Sam, all right. So with that said, just take note. You already ran through everything. Of course, we'll send out emails as reminders for everything. But again, thanks for coming to the convention. It's going to be a great convention. Appreciate everyone participating. And
You are all checked in if you've got your badges already, but if you want to grab some swag from the table, make sure you get your tote bag and whatever else.
I want to be clear, the point board did not put these little statute of responsibility things out.
you just tried to slide those in.
I just wanted to leave that for you. That was just a gift from me. Had nothing to do with point of order.
I just want to be clear.
It's been sitting 10 years.
Thank you, Mayor.
Very good. Statue of irresponsibility.
It's in the establishment section.
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.